Lesson 58 is about something called the distance problem. And problems that we're going to see in this lesson will sound something like this. Helen could travel 40 miles per hour. How long would it take her to travel 600 miles? Now when we're working with distance problems, any type of distance problem, where you have a speed like 40 miles per hour and a total distance of 600 miles, we've got an important formula. And the important formula that we have is this. We have distance is equal to the rate, or the speed, that's the same thing, times the time. So, for example, if you were going 50 miles per hour, mph, for 2 hours, our total distance, 50 times 2, would have to be equal to 100 miles. Now we can use this formula, distance equals rate times time, to solve a problem like we have here. Let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to take this formula and I'm going to make it a little smaller so we can work with it on the side. Distance is equal to rate times time, and we've got our one example. Now it said Helen could travel 40 miles per hour. That's our rate. Okay, a rate is just like a speed. So we've got 40 mph, miles per hour, okay, times the time. In this problem, there's no time there, so we're going to put times, and then I'm going to write in parentheses time. You could put a t for your variable if you like, but I'm just going to write out time today. How long would it take her to travel 600 miles? So this is going to be equal to the total distance that has been covered by Helen. So that was 600 miles. Now we can go ahead and solve. We want to know what time is. So in order for us to know what time is, we want to get that by itself. We're going to have to undo the multiplication of 40. So if we want to undo multiplication, we can use division. So we're going to divide this right-hand side by 40 miles per hour. Because 40 divided by 40 is 1. What we do on the right-hand side, we have to do on the left-hand side. So we're going to divide by 40 miles per hour. So our answer, how long it takes, is going to be 600 divided by 40. Let's go ahead and go through that math. 600 divided by 40. Well, 40 goes into 60 one time. We get 40 with 20 left over, and we bring down our 0. We bring down our 0, we have 200. 40 must go into 200 5 times. 40 times 5 is 200. We have 0 left over. So our time must be equal to 15 hours. It's a long time. But 600 miles is also a long way to go. So we've got our answer, 15 hours is equal to time. We can check our work if we like. Okay, in order to check our work, let's go ahead and shrink this work. We shrink that work. We'll go ahead and we'll move this whole thing off to the side. Now, in order to check our work, what we can say is the rate times the time should equal the distance. So 40 times 15, that should equal 600 miles if we're right. Because if you go 40 miles per hour for 15 hours, based on what we've calculated, you'll go 600 miles. Let's see if we were right. 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 4 is 20. We've got 0 as a placeholder. 1 times 0 is 0, and 1 times 4 is 4. We add them up, we get 600. Perfect. We got 600 miles, we've checked our answer, we know that we're correct. Let's move on to the next problem. Okay, Harry could travel 350 miles in 7 hours. What was his speed? Remember, speed. Speed is the same thing as the rate. And the formula that we have is distance is equal to rate times time. D equals RT is a way you could abbreviate that. So, he could travel 350 miles in 7 hours. If we want to know what his rate is, a rate is like a speed. 50 miles per hour is an example of a rate. We're going to have 350 miles in the numerator and 7 hours in the denominator. Because like we say we travel 50 miles per hour in a car, we want miles in the numerator and hours in the denominator. Let's go ahead and simplify. 350 divided by 7. You might be able to do that in your head. Do it in your head. What's 35 divided by 7? Hopefully you said 5. We've got a 0 left over, so it must be 50. So, what was his speed? His speed was 50 miles per hour, and we can put mph for our abbreviation. We're all done with question A. How long would it take him to travel 800 miles? Well, if he wanted to go 800 miles total, d, that's distance, 800 is going to be equal to our rate, that's 50, times our time, t. I'm going to put that in parentheses, 50 times t. Well, in order to figure out what t is, we need to isolate it, get it by itself, so we're going to divide by 50 on both sides, because 50 divided by 50 is 1. We're going to divide by 50. What we do on one side, we have to do on the other side to balance out. Now, let's go ahead and figure out what 800 divided by 50 is. 800 divided by 50, well, 50 goes into 80 one time. We get 50. We subtract, we have 30 left over, and we're going to bring down our other 0. 50 must go into 300 6 times. So we've got 16. We have nothing left over because 6 times 50 is 300. So we have 16. How long would it take him to travel 800 miles? The time, t, is equal to 16. So it must be 16 hours. Because remember, we were talking in miles per hour for our unit. So we've got question B completed. At this speed, how far could he travel in 12 hours? Well, problem C is easier than problem B, and that's because we know that his rate is 50 miles per hour, so the distance that he could travel, distance is going to be equal to the rate of 50 times the time of 12. So we can do 50 times 12 to figure out the answer for question C. Let's go ahead and do that. 50 times 12. Well, 2 times 0 is 0, and 2 times 5 is 10. We've got 0 as a placeholder. 1 times 0 is 0, and 1 times 5 is 5. 100 plus 500 must give us 600. So we need a label because we're talking about a word problem here. How far could he travel? Well, Harry could travel 600 miles if he's going 50 miles per hour for 12 hours in a row. And we're all done with question C. We're going to practice this some more with our lesson practice on page 187. Make sure you've got your notes complete, and I'll see you during our next class.